Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron, and I'm back with more Kickstarter Battlytics action. Tonight, I'm looking at a weird one. It's the Shogun. I say it's weird because I don't know anything about it. I got this thing in my Kickstarter, and I always thought it was a Draconis Combine mech, because, Shogun, but I was mistaken. Little did I know, this was like a Star League era thing. It was built for urban combat. It ended up in the hands of the clans. There's a bunch of clan like C variants, right, that are out there. And then of course Wolf Dragoons. I hate all the Wolf Dragoons only mechs. By the way, can we talk about that for a minute? Let's not. But this one ended up in the hands of Wolf Dragoons, of course, when they came back. But then years later, Clan C Fox decided to refit this one, the Shogun SHG-3E, and they refit it and they sold it to a whole bunch of people, as Clan C Fox does. So that's the Shogun we're going to talk about, the one I can actually use in my games, because I don't have a Wolf's Dragoons Force. Should I? I don't know. Leave it in the comments. Let me know. But the Shogun, let's talk about this guy. So this is an 85-ton inner sphere design. It's got a battle value of 1988, which, in that sort of Dark Age, ilClan era, it's not too bad for an 85-ton mech. As I mentioned, designed for urban fighting, so true to form, it keeps its jump jets, but is, Highlander-esque in speed, with a move profile of 353. It does have double heat sinks. It's got 14, so it can dissipate 28 points of heat. Standard fusion engine, which we all know I love. Standard gyro, standard cockpit, standard structure, but it does have ferrofibrous armor to the tune of 13.5 tons for 91.6% total coverage. So very, very good. 241 pips. That's nothing to sneeze at, as they say. Now it has upper and lower arm actuators, but no hands. If you're playing with quirks, I think it has like battle fists or whatever, so it can like punch the crap out of things, which is fun, I guess. Weapon-wise, very interesting. It's got twin LRM-15s. It's got a pair of Streak SRM-6s, and then a snub-nose PPC. Similar to our friend the Mastodon, this guy has Case 2 in the side torsos, which I love, and that protects all of the ammo that is in there. And it does have a significant amount of ammo. So, let's take a look at this thing. We're going to look at offensive benchmarks, defensive benchmarks, the whole 9 yards. I'm optimistic for the Shogun because I think it has a very, very attractive price point at 1988 battle value. But let's see. So guys, stay tuned. Shogun Battlytics coming right up. All right, so here we are. Offensive benchmarks. The first thing you'll notice is that the heat chart's blank. Why is that, you ask? Well, it's because it can't actually build up any heat. It can fire everything, it can walk, it can do all the things, but it really doesn't build up any heat in our simulations. I guess that's a good thing. It makes it a great beginner mech. It makes it very easy to use in that regard because you just hold down all the buttons. But I always like mechs where you can take a little bit of risk. You can generate a little bit of heat, especially in Classic, because it's got a 30-point heat scale. It's very, very forgiving, but it is what it is. Now, if we look at the damage chart, obviously the red line, the optimized damage, the baseline damage, they're all the same. That's 251.1 points of damage there. Now, where does this thing stack up on the cumulative benchmark? It is approaching Timberwolf Prime levels of damage. Now, again, the Timberwolf Prime is a 75-ton Omni mech. This is an 85-ton Inner Sphere mech. So I'm going to call that a win. I think that's pretty solid in terms of how it stacks up in its peer group. Obviously blows the doors off the awesome 8Q, which is old school, but not quite at the level of the Devastator, which was that Gauss boat we looked at not too long ago. So in the lethality index, this thing did pretty well. 6.6 damage per hit. That's actually higher than I anticipated. I think a lot of that comes into play because, the snub-nose PPC, the clusters of 5 for the LRM, so on and so forth. Surprisingly, not generating as many critical hits as I expected. So 3.26. Even with the SRMs, the streaks, it just doesn't seem to be finding the criticals. And I think that's because, if you look at the time to kill, it's 7.14. That's about average, I would say, a little bit better than average. So it's probably taking it a little bit of time to blow holes in this javelin before it can really even get to that meaty interior. You'll notice, 9.5% of the time it was generating head kills, and 88.3% of the time it just ate through the whole mech. It really wasn't even getting engine kills, which was interesting to see. So I think this thing, kind of interesting the way the streaks and the LRMs and things sort of play together. It wasn't really like a Kintaro style crit finder. It just seemed to kind of beat the thing down. So not what I expected in terms of damage, but again, the final numbers, the amount of damage output, still very, very solid. So we're going to take a look at the defensive side next. We'll see how tough the Shogun is. All right, so here we are on the defensive side. Let's take a look at the armor diagnostic first. So again, this thing had 91.6% coverage on this mech, right? So significant for an 85-ton mech. And I love the way it's laid out, right? You've got it where it counts, all across the torsos. Just a little, it's a scooch under on the arms, but the real, it's really shaving it off the legs more than anything. It shaves its legs, is what I'm trying to say. But again, does it even affect anything? The motive analysis here, it's 2%. It's crazy. It's less than the Mastodon. And again, I think that's because the Mastodon, not to go back to it, but it had so much internal structure. You could peel off all the armor and you're just hitting the structure for days. So the opportunity to generate a crit's a lot higher, but it's lasting a lot longer. Very strange. This guy, the motive hits, it was only 2%. So 2 in 100, you're losing. It's actually better than the Mastodon, which again, very, very strange. So talk about survivability for a minute. 93% on this mech. It's very, very, very high. If you look at the ammo analysis just to the left of the survivability donut, you'll see the left torso is, 39%, or 38%, and the right torso is 30%. So again, it's a 1/3-ish, if we're going to round numbers, right? 1/3-ish on either side to strike ammo, but it does have case 2, so it's going to blow that out the back, right? You lose your rear armor, but it is what it is. And again, standard fusion engine, this is huge. It's a very, very big deal. Now, when we look at the actual deaths that occurred, only 2.1% were engine deaths, right? And those are, criticals generated in CT. The other 5% CT head deaths, and the majority of those, again, it's kind of split. Sometimes you get the head kill, sometimes you get the CT kill, but very, very strong survivability overall. Now, if we look at that area chart just next to the right of the survivability donut, and you look at the BV, right, where that little reticle is, it's outperforming by a significant margin. I'd say the average is somewhere around 75, maybe 76% for this BV. This guy's way outperforming that. So in terms of battle value, in terms of bang for buck survivability, how long you can keep this thing on the field, very, very good so far. So let's take a look at efficiency next. We'll see how it all fits together. Again, very survivable, respectable damage. Let's see what we got. All right, so here it is. So first of all, 8.78. It's a very, very good number. Very, very good number. We'll get back to that. Let's talk about the effective average calculated damage. Because this thing has strong survivability, right? You are essentially not losing any damage at all. The percent loss is only 2.7. The average is around 10. So 2.7 is exceptional in that regard. One of the lowest, I think, that we've looked at. So overall, this thing is able to hold its damage all the way through. Of course, my first reaction to seeing this is oh my God, why does it have streak 6s? And why didn't we put more LRMs on it, or I don't know, more long range weapons of any kind? Because if you get that back end damage up and you're doing that over time all the way through to the end of the game, that's impressive. Imagine this thing with like a Gauss rifle instead of a snub-nosed PPC, something along those lines. I think it'd be very, very potent. All right, anyway, so efficiency rating of 8.78. As you can see in the shadow chart below, it's outperforming its peer group. Again, that average for assaults is somewhere, between 7 and 8, closer to 7, maybe 7.1, 7.2. But this one is definitely outperforming. It's not quite in that like clan crazy, 10 plus territory, but it is very, very, very good. I'm very impressed with the Shogun. Again, came into this not really knowing anything about it, but pretty impressed. Now, fun fact, gunnery sensitivity, 0.8. You might say, Aaron, we just looked at the Mastodon and you told us that, it was below average because it had so many missiles. And I would tell you, you are correct, except this has twin streak 6s. And when you hit with a streak 6, you're doing all the damage, right? And so having solid gunnery on this guy is pretty important. I would definitely not play it at gunnery 4. You can see it actually dips off there. I don't know that I would play it at like gunnery 1 or, something higher. I would probably play it at gunnery 2, especially considering the BV is so low. I think it's really, really good in that slot. I think you can get away with 3 depending on what your group plays with, but I think 2 is the magic number for this mech. All right, let's take a look at roles and how I would use this thing on the battlefield. All right, so again, role evaluation, a little bit of a different visualization there. There are 2 roles that I picked for the Shogun. The first one is Defender. Now, again, the snub-nosed PPC, it's got that damage bump. I believe it comes on it at 15 inches. You can shoot that thing, if I'm not mistaken. It's got the LRMs for extra long range. And if things get close, they need to capture the objective or get into the base. Again, you've got these twin streak 6s, which are pretty nasty. And let's face it, your Shogun doesn't seem to be going anywhere with that kind of survivability. People are going to have to contribute a lot of firepower and a lot of attention to this Shogun before it's destroyed. So in that regard, I think it makes a good base defender or good objective holder. I also picked frontline mech. Slow and steady wins the race here. Again, it's not really fast enough to keep up with lighter mechs. But if you have a generally slow lance of like Atlases or longbows or whatever, like, it's all the slow turd mechs, I would stick this guy out in the front. Why not? Your longbows can support it from the rear. It can still provide some covering fire on the way in. Again, it doesn't have that, like, what did I call it? The distraction Carnifex, like, effect that the Mastodon has. Because they look at the Mastodon, they look at the record sheet, they're like, holy crap. This thing, I look at the weapons, I'm like, eh. But I think that's deceiving. And I think that is to the Shogun's advantage because it can actually churn out, based on our simulations, a significant amount of damage. Definitely nothing to scoff at. So, ACD cap on this mech was okay. Again, you'll notice like the threat assessment there, that chart. There's no alpha ACD because it's the same as the zero heat ACD because you can actually generate heat. So there's a significant gap between the zero heat and the alpha, right? Our peak zero heat is 36.1 damage, but our alpha strike potential is actually 64. So your ACD cap is in the 50% range because of that. Again, I almost wish there was maybe a slightly different array of weapons. Maybe you keep one of the Streak 6s, but you put an LRM 10 in. I'm not sure. Leave it in the comments. Tell me what you think. I am bummed that there's such a limited amount of Shogun variants that from a canon or from like a fluff perspective that you could take. I'm also disappointed like that it's only Wolf's Dragoons at a certain point. I don't like that. Like same thing with the Annihilator. Like it's very restrictive in that regard. Thankfully, the later errors are a little more flexible in that way, so that's very cool. But I do wish there were a couple more variants of this one. I may play around in Mega Mech, but curious to know what you guys think and what mods you would make to this mech to make it better. But that said, a couple of things. Number one, guys, as you know, Aries Games and Minis, that's my number one stop for all things BattleTech. If you want to get yourself a Shogun or anything, books, dice, paintbrushes, decals, terrain, you can head on over to Aries Games and Minis. It's fast shipping, great prices, tremendous customer service. Derek is very, very responsive over there. It's one of the reasons that I can't say enough good about him. Customer service to me is absolutely paramount. So again, check out Aries Games and Minis. He's a big BattleTech fan and a supporter of the channel. So why don't you give him some love? And speaking of supporting the channel, guys, if you want to help out more, you can head on over to Patreon. It's as little as $1 a month. That's all it takes to help us keep the lights on and keep the cameras rolling. Now, if you don't want to give us $1, that's fine. I won't judge you. You can hit the like button. You can hit the subscribe button. That's free. Costs literally nothing. So if you're not subscribed, please do so. And again, leave a comment. Tell me, what you think about the Shogun overall, like what you think about the 3E variant. I want to hear it all. I always love the comments on our Battlytics videos. So that said, guys, I'm all wrapped up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a good night.